Welcome back to the Wall Street Podcast.
Today we're analyzing key data points from the Wall Street Journal, specifically the edition from Tuesday, September 30th, 2025.
Right. We're going to quickly distill the big headlines. We've got record leveraged buyouts, some really interesting financing shifts in AI, and tech-driven corporate restructuring.
Starting with the financial spectacle, really. Electronic Arts announced a $55 billion leveraged buyout.
$55 billion, that's huge.
It is. It involves Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners. This makes it the largest LBO ever, bigger than the TXU deal back in 2007.
Okay, massive deal there. Then there's the AI infrastructure financing. Oracle.
Yes, Oracle's deal with OpenAI, it's a $300 billion 5-year contract for infrastructure. Huge commitment.
$300 billion. And how are they financing that? I heard borrowing figures.
Analysts are estimating Oracle might need to borrow something like $25 billion annually for 4 years straight.
Wow. Especially when you consider their current debt to equity. It's high, isn't it?
Extremely high, around 450%. So yes, significant leverage involved.
Okay. And the third piece, corporate restructuring.
That's Deutsche Lufthansa. They're cutting about 4,000 jobs, looking out towards 2030.
Primarily administrative roles, I gather, in Germany.
Correct. And they're explicitly linking this to rolling out artificial intelligence and automation. The target is about $351 million in annual adjusted earnings uplift.
All right, let's dig into these a bit. First, that EA deal. A record LBO, sure. But EA's stock hasn't exactly been stellar against the S&P 500 lately. Why pay such a premium, about 25% right?
Well, from a private equity perspective, it signals real confidence in the stability of video game live services.
So less about game sales, more about subscription, microtransactions.
Exactly. They're betting on that recurring, predictable cash flow, treating it almost like an infrastructure asset, not just volatile entertainment.
Interesting. That focus on cash flow brings us straight to Oracle and AI leverage. They have 450% debt to equity. Is this kind of highly leveraged financing the new normal for building out AI, or are we just, creating a bubble?
It certainly seems to be becoming more common, perhaps even necessary for some players. Think about competitors trying to keep up with the hyperscalers.
Like CoreWeave or Nebius?
Precisely. They often rely heavily on debt secured against these big long-term AI contracts. But yes, it absolutely introduces systemic risk, a definite bubble-like vulnerability if end-user demand doesn't keep pace with this massive infrastructure spend.
Which connects to the physical constraints, right? We see policy issues like the EV tax credit deadline potentially lapsing, maybe a government shutdown looming. How does this tie into the grid problems and rising electricity costs we're hearing about?
There's a direct link. The sheer power demand from these AI data centers is enormous. Projections suggest maybe a 25% increase in overall U.S. electricity demand by 2030 just from AI.
25%.
And rates are already climbing. The policy paralysis, things like regulatory hurdles and permitting delays, they prevent the grid expansion needed to actually handle this surge in demand from technology.
So moving beyond the markets, how do these big trends actually affect people day to day?
Well, take copyright, for instance. OpenAI is apparently planning a version of its Sora video tool that uses copyrighted works unless the owner specifically opts out.
So the burden shifts entirely to the creators.
Pretty much. Creators and publishers have to actively police it, which carries costs.
And at the same time, the very infrastructure we've been discussing, those power-hungry data centers financed with all that debt.
They're being cited as a direct reason household electricity prices are going up across the country. That's a cost hitting everyone's wallet.
So we have this collision course.
Exactly. Record amounts of capital betting on tech's future, but bumping up against strained financial structures like Oracle's debt and very real physical limits like the power grid.
It leaves you with a crucial question to think about. If AI automation leads to widespread job cuts like we see potentially starting at Lufthansa, how does the system service the massive debt taken on to build that AI? Especially if the consumer base, the end users paying for these services, shrinks or becomes economically unstable. That's our deep dive for today.